What's up? Happy Friday to you guys and welcome to the Faith Unbuttoned Podcast. I'm your host, Pastor K, and I'm so excited to rock with you guys tonight. It's been a few weeks since I've been streaming a new episode. My wife and I just got back off a marvelous 9-day cruise, and I'm excited to get back to doing what we do here at the Faith Unbuttoned Podcast, and we're going to pick up right where we left off a couple of weeks ago on Don't Get Married If. But before we get there, what's up with you guys? How was your week? How was your Friday? Are you excited for the weekend? We're approaching Mother's Day, and for those of you all who still are fortunate enough to have your mothers and your grandmothers, God bless you, and take a moment to shine with them and to show them love and kindness. And for those of you who may have had your mother, your grandmother, the great-grandmothers pass on, God bless you as well. It's always a great thing to shine on those who have been a positive influence in our lives, and those who may be struggling with today for various reasons. I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on how good God has been in spite of the current emotions you may be dealing with on this upcoming Mother's Day, because we have an opportunity to live life and breathe life again. God is so faithful to us, and we should just take a moment just to breathe in and acknowledge His presence on this particular Mother's Day and this particular weekend. So that's my spiel today on this Friday, because I want to get right to what we've been talking about here on the Faith Unbuttoned Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Never Alone Christian Center. Make sure you like and subscribe, not only on Facebook and Instagram, but we're also on TikTok as well, and join the NAC family and become a part and help us grow and develop as we continue to push through our first year of the inception of Never Alone Christian Center, as well as the Faith Unbuttoned Podcast. All right, so listen, we have been working on this particular topic on Don't Get Married If. And the thought process behind this is, if you're married, then take from the particular topics, I think this is topic number 4 or podcast number 4 with this particular subject matter, take from it and add it to your current marriage. Now, if you're single, unmarried, widowed, whatever case may be, and you're desiring to get married, you're in the process of getting married, I believe that you may stand to gain some of the most pertinent information from this particular podcast, because it helps jolt your thinking process when we talk about the idea or the process or the institution, if you will, of marriage. And I think that before we get married, that there are several things that we should consider. And throughout the course of this podcast, I've touched on just a few of those things. So I encourage you, if you've missed previous podcasts within this particular topic, that you go back to the YouTube channel, grab the playlist, and stream the other few podcasts so that you may be in tune with what we are learning with this particular podcast, and that you can glean from some of the things that my wife and I have experienced over the last 15 years of our marriage. So we left off about 2 weeks ago. We asked the question when we were dealing with this particular topic. We said, do you and your potential partner share the same definition of marriage? Listen, it is so critical that you and your potential partner share the same definition of marriage. When we don't share the same definition of marriage, that's when we run into conflicts and we run into issues down the road in our marriage. You ever look at marriages that have been together for 5, 10, 15, even maybe 20 years, and they just seem to have a good marriage on the outside, but then down the road they separate, divorce, or whatever the case may be. You say, well, what in the world happened? You guys look so great from the outside looking in. And a lot of it simply comes down to the definition of marriage, or what they thought marriage to be amongst the two of them, differed along the line somewhere, and eventually those differences begin to take a toll on any marriage or any relationship. Do you even have a definition of marriage other than what you have seen, maybe your parents may have experienced, or what you may have read in the Bible, or in various marital books, or what you may have gleaned from social media? All of these resources are valuable. Some of them provide some factual information. Some of them provide some information that's not some factual. Some of them are reality. Some of them are not really reality. So you have to be able to put together a working definition for your personal life of what you believe marriage to be, so that when you decide to join with somebody, you can see if your definition of marriage works. We said this all the time, or I say this all the time rather, that marriage is a partnership. It's like a business partnership, and you don't want to go into business with someone who doesn't have the same business model, business plan, strategy, ideologies as you do, because ultimately that business will crumble and run into certain circumstances and situations that may not be able to be resolved simply because the thinking process behind the inception of that business does not match. Okay? The blueprints must match the construction of the building. But as you're building this particular building, i.e. the marriage, there will be some minor changes and tweaks, but the blueprint must match what one another believe marriage to be. So tonight, what we want to do is we want to look at a definition of marriage, a definition that I learned through premarital counseling from the ministry that I was a part of for many years. And I believe that I've broken it down into sections, and I believe that it is very practical, and it's very reasonable definition of what marriage should be, based upon scripture and based upon the natural side of life as well. Because many of us, if we're honest, and we ask ourselves the question, where does our idea of marriage come from? Where does our definition of marriage come from? A lot of it comes from our mom, our dad, our mother, our father, our grandmothers, our grandfathers. It comes from books, church, social media, as we said earlier. But the question is this definition that we're gathering together of marriage, is it practical? Does it really work in the real world? Can you apply it to your life and to your marriage, if that's the path that you're traveling? Will it work for you? These are all the questions that you want to be able to answer and have an idea about before you even consider traveling this path of marriage. So let's look at this basic working definition. Now, it's not going to be your standard definition as you would read out of the Webster Dictionary, for example. I've broken it down into a couple of different components so that we can understand exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the definition. And I use that word definition loosely because marriage has to have a foundation, but at times a marriage can be fluid. It may shift a little bit to the left and shift a little bit to the right. And that's okay. But as you're shifting to the right and shifting to the left and traveling along the marriage, you want to have something that you can resort back to. You want to have some foundation that you can connect back to. You want to have some form of counsel, some form of terminologies that both parties can agree upon, so when things get a little wobbly, you can go back to a place of neutrality so that you guys can be on the same page. All right, so let's look at this particular definition. So when we talk about marriage consists of two rational people. Now, in as a Christian, and I use that word loosely because a lot of people say they're Christian, they believe all type of stuff. I teach, I preach, I marry a man and a woman. That's where I am, okay? So two rational people come together, all right? Now, they voluntarily come together. Now, I know there are many cultures when it comes to marriage that have prearranged marriages. And a lot of those prearranged marriages last for forever, through death do them part. It has worked for many, many cultures. So I am not discouraging or I'm not discrediting cultures who operate in the idea of prearranged marriages, okay? But I'm looking at this from the perspective of how I teach, how I believe here in the area that I'm in, and marriage consists of two people who are voluntarily coming together, Okay, they are not being forced. They're not being promised money. It's not a cultural thing. They are volunteering to come together. And through this volunteering process, they have made a decision to start dating or courting one another. Okay, we're looking at the definition of marriage. Before we get down the aisle, what takes place before all of that? Two rational people. We say rational because we want to make sure that we're in our right frame of mind when we're even thinking about marriage. Two rational people who are voluntarily coming together. They decide to date. Now, the time frames on dating are often debated. How long should I date before I get married? How long should we court? How long should we do premarital? How long before we kiss? How long before we hold hands? How long before we have sex? All of these are debated topics and time frames. And just to be honest with you, there is no answer. Okay? Each relationship is different based upon age, based upon whether he's been married before, she's been married before. Are there kids involved? Is there distance involved in the relationship? How did the relationship form? Were you friends for years? Now are you in a relationship? All of these time frames are subject to each and every individual. So I'm not even going to waste your time and tell you, well, you need to date at least a year before you do this. You need to wait at least 6 months before you do that. There is no right answer to that. Okay, that is based upon how you and your potential partner decide to handle things. You know, a rule of thumb for me personally, I feel as if you should date at least a year or from 1 to 3 years before you decide if you want to make that leap into marriage. Okay. Now, so we got two rational people who have voluntarily come together. They're now dating each other. All right. So now you're at the point when you're ready to decide to move to the next level. What am I doing here? I'm giving you a definition of marriage before we get to marriage. All right. Understanding that you voluntarily have come together, and this is going to be important when we get down to the meat of this. All right. You decide to move to the next level, which is engagement or premarital counsel. All right. Now, once you decide to go through that process, now you're making a decision to join together with an imperfect person. Let me say that again. Marriage. You're making a decision voluntarily, having dated someone. You're ready to move to the next level. Now you're making another decision to join together with an imperfect person. In other words, he's not perfect, you're not perfect. You both acknowledge that. That's not an excuse for mistake after mistake and lie after lie. That's not an excuse, but it is an acknowledgement that you are not perfect. He, nor she, nor you all together are perfect by no means. What does that mean? That means there are going to be some ups and some downs because nobody in this particular marriage is perfect but God. All right? So now you've made the decision to join someone who's imperfect. Now you decide to enter into a covenant relationship, marriage, which is a spiritual thing and a natural thing. Okay? It's a spiritual thing because it's taking place in unity with God. You're making a decision, one another, to commit yourself to one another. And commit yourself to the purpose of marriage through Christ Jesus as a Christian. Okay, you're making this unity. You're becoming bound together. On the natural side, you're filling out a marriage certificate so that you can be certified through the state. All right. So you've made this decision. Let's go back. Two rational people voluntarily come together. They date each other. They move to the next level. Premarital counseling, engagement. They decide to join together with an imperfect person. They get into a covenant relationship, which is the marital day. Okay. Now they're making another decision. These are all decisions, not by force. You're choosing to do this. Okay. You're making another decision to love a person unconditionally. Okay. To death do us part. Unconditionally. Whether they lose their job, gain their job, whether their health deteriorates, whether they have ups, whether they have downs, unconditional love, a lifetime commitment. Now that's the biggie. That's a biggie. Lifetime. So Pastor K, I got to do this for marriage is designed for a lifetime. Now we know the statistics, 55% of people are getting divorced, not only in the church, but in the world. So the lifetime commitment, yes, that is another realm of commitment. But the day you decide to get married, that is the commitment that you're signing up for. Okay? A lifetime commitment to God. That's the important part. You're making this commitment to God first. Because why? We as people are imperfect. So we make the commitment to God to stay with an imperfect person again that you have chose. God didn't choose them. You chose them. God didn't mingle in choosing your spouse as a mate. He puts people before you. You choose them or you choose not to choose them. So stop blaming God that God broke up your marriage. God didn't break up your marriage. God didn't send this man to you, send that woman to you. God put you in the earth, put you in a place to find love, put people before you. You found love. You decide to get married to an imperfect person. You decide to go through premarital counseling. You decide to go to the next level. You understood the commitment of the relationship. You understood the unconditional love. You understood the lifetime commitment, and you still got divorced. Don't blame God. God puts all the resources out there. Now, whether or not you took advantage of the resources, whether or not you just said yes to all the premarital counseling information, whether or not you got bad counsel, all of those are factors, but you can't blame God because God don't mingle in all of that, all right? So that is our definition of marriage. Okay, you say, well, wow, Pastor K, that's a lot. That is a lot. That is a lot because marriage is serious. And I don't want people to just go diving in all willy-nilly and not understand that it is a very serious commitment. You say, well, Pastor K, well, does the man and the woman both have to agree? That's what we're talking about today. Don't get married if you and your potential partner don't agree on the definition of marriage. If you don't agree that marriage is supposed to be a lifetime, if the wife believes this is a lifetime commitment and the husband doesn't, that's a problem. That's a problem because he's telling you from day one, I don't know if I'm going to last forever, but I'll do my best. That's trash because that's not the definition that you guys have agreed upon. You have to agree upon a particular definition. You have to agree that you both understand that you're imperfect, that you both understand the unconditional lifetime commitment to God. You all have to agree upon that. You have to agree upon that you are willing to do everything within your power, within your might to stay with this person. And in my opinion, this is why many marriages have faltered. Because no one or both parties don't agree on the definition of marriage. They went into marriage loving each other. They went into marriage happy, joyous, whatever the case may be. But when things begin to get tough, their definition of marriage began to differ. Why is it important to share the same definition of marriage? Well, let me give you some scripture real quick, and then we're going to get back to this. Amos 3:3 says, can two walk together except they be agreed? How are you going to roll with a wife, roll with your husband, if you don't agree on the basic definition of what marriage really is? How is it going to work? Well, you say, well, Pastor K, I'm already married, and it's clear to me that my spouse and I have a different definition of marriage. What should I do? Great question. I recommend getting counsel. Now, there's been a big knock on spiritual counsel versus natural counsel. Listen, I believe in both. Okay? Sometimes your church may not be equipped to handle the issue that you may be dealing with. It's okay to go to natural counsel. It's okay to go to a marital counsel. A lot of insurance is covering this stuff these days. You know, yes, your pastor's in place. Yes, he's there to help. Yes, he's there to guide. You know, but the reality of it, spiritual counsel and natural counsel are two different types of counseling. And you have to understand that. And I'm not one of those pastors who's going to be like, well, the church should be able to fix everything. Yeah, it should in theory. But I also understand that church is also ran by man. And a lot of times men are in position who do not have the protocol, the processes in place to help everything. And that's why God provides knowledge and wisdom, puts people in place to lead you and guide you. You have to know as a leader, sidebar real quick, as a leader, as an overseer, as a pastor, when you are not equipped to handle something, to guide people in the right direction, to help them. Because ultimately that's the goal, to help them. Okay? Why is it important to share the same definition of marriage? Why is this important? Now, this may take me, this podcast to the next one, but I want us to take our time through this. Why is it important? The first reason it's important that before you get married, it's important to share the same definition of marriage. Why? Number one, stability. Stability. Anything unstable has a great potential to falter or to crumble. A cracked foundation, a shaky foundation, an unsure foundation, a variant state of what marriage is to the husband versus the wife, or the man versus the woman. All of this is a lack of stability. So when you enter into a marriage and there's no stability, you already are setting the marriage up for the potential for it to crumble. Then it may not always crumble, but you're setting the marriage up for the potential to crumble because there's no stability. Why? Because the man believes one thing and the woman believes another. You've come together and now you're trying to make each other believe what you believe, and it's not working. And now you don't have any stability in your marriage. And now you bring on children, and now they don't have stability. They see the bickering, the arguing, the cheating, the lying, the lack of trust. And now what do we have? We have a family that is going through hard times, potentially leading to separation and a divorce. Simply because two people voluntarily came together, but during that voluntary process, no one discussed what marriage really was to them. Stability. Why is it important to share the same definition of marriage? Trust. Trust. When we have a difference in our thinking, we hold secrets. We hold secrets. Yet I do encourage independent thinkers, but marriage is a partnership. The left leg can't jump without acknowledging the right leg. You see, when you have two different ideas of what marriage is, I was reading a post the other day, and a young lady was talking about, that her husband does a good job, takes care for her, provides for her. They have a joint bank account or whatever the case may be. But she decided to get a job online, and she was bringing in some side money, and she created a secret bank account, and he found out about it, and it caused a rift. So she said, well, my mom told me to always have a secret bank account just in case things don't work out. And I feel like the insecurities of that mother were placed on that daughter, and she now has this secret bank account, and her husband has found out about it, and now they have a rift, and it's all because of something that was planted in her, and that was planted in her caused a trust issue in her marriage. You see, when we don't share the same definition of marriage, we lack stability, we lack trust, which leads to holding secrets, which can lead to major problems down the road. All right. So thank you guys for rocking with me tonight with the Faith Unbuttoned podcast. We're going to pick up next week. We have about 4 or 5 more things we want to talk about within this particular topic of don't get married if. And we're dealing with, do you and your particular spouse share the same definition of marriage? Listen, I encourage you guys as we roll out with my final thought tonight to, if you have any questions or concerns, or you want to drop me a DM, hit me up on I am Kenton Wiley on Instagram, or you can hit the church as well at neveralonecc on IG or Facebook or Messenger, or email at our website, which is neveralonecc.org. But my final thought tonight is to encourage you that if you desire to get married, it's an exciting thing. It's an exciting thing. But I also caution you to make sure before you begin to travel this journey that you have a working definition of what you believe marriage to be. This way, when you find a spouse or a potential spouse finds you, ladies, then you know that you have a working definition, a foundation that will lead back to stability, that will lead you back to trust, and that will help you keep the marriage strong. All right? I'll check with you guys later. I love you. Once again, happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Let's go.